Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Future of Sustainability Reporting number 2, Challenges and Opportunities for SME Reporting, organized by CDL and the Singapore Sustainability Academy in partnership with SGX, the Singapore Institute of Directors, NUS Business School Center for Governance and Sustainability, the UN ESCAP Sustainable Business Network, Global Compact Network Singapore, Enterprise Singapore, and EcoBusiness. This is the second session of the virtual Singapore Sustainability Academy webinar series on sustainability reporting, and the focus of today's session is SMEs. The Singapore Sustainability Academy, or SSA in short, was opened in 2017. It's Singapore's first major 3P partnership space dedicated to capacity building, thought leadership, and collaboration on climate action and sustainability best practices. Today's webinar will be moderated by Ms. Esseran, CDL's Chief Sustainability Officer. Do take part in the discussion by sharing your comments or questions using the Q&A feature. This session is currently live on our Facebook page and will also be recorded and accessible on our CDL Sustainability YouTube page. Before we begin, may we please invite you to participate in a poll. A poll window should appear on your screen. There are 4 questions. You may input more than one option for the last question. And please remember to press the submit button when you are done. We see the results coming in. We'll wait a few more seconds for more people to answer. Thank you. Thank you for taking part in the poll. Here are the results. Over to you, Esther.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And it's so exciting. We have 200 over online now. Well, let's take a look at the results. That's really happy to see that 66% of the companies have a dedicated personnel on sustainability, and same 66% have published a sustainability report. And the driver behind it is actually not just because of regulatory compliance. It's 60% is by your own choice, which is very, very encouraging. And but nothing it is so rosy in this world, and there are actually definitely obstacles, whether for SME or for large cap as well. So manpower, yes, you're very right. And then whether we have enough skilled professionals to lead the sustainability reporting journey, and also whether there is leadership commitment is always a topic. And yes, there are definitely a lot of standards and framework. And while you will be happy to hear to have all these questions can be answered by our panelists, how SME can do better, and how are we going to survive and surface, stay afloat in the hot soup of our, the so-called framework and standards that are like, whether it is GRI, whether it is IRRC, SSB, TCFD, there are just so many. And we know that it is not easy, but we really need SME to be on board this sustainability journey, because globally, SMEs account for 90% of businesses worldwide and more than 50% of total employment. And even in Singapore, SME are a key pillar of our economy, contributing 45% of our GDP and employing more than 70% of workforce and constituting 99.5% of our total enterprises. So SMEs are really playing a very, very major role. And we are still not out of the wood. Unfortunately, we are even on this heightened alert now, on fighting the global pandemic. So we have actually learned a hard way. Last year has been coined as, the awakening of whether it is sustainability or eco-awakening. Many people call it, different way. But the clear message is we all know that the health of our planet, people, businesses, and economies are all interconnected and all interdependent. So how can we, accelerate our action, to grow and to recover better and in a more sustainable manner? So are SME catching up with the global business and investment trend? And are SME ready, and are we communicating effectively with our, with your investors and financiers to tap onto the fast growing ESG investment and also sustainable finance? So today we have really a lot of, a few really experts on our panel. In the latest sustainability reporting review published by SGX and NUS Business School, the Center for Governance and Sustainability, the co-author, Dr. Lawrence Loh, is on our panel. And unfortunately, there are still much room for improvement for SME reporters. He's going to, start the discussion today by some of the findings. So I think we definitely have a lot to learn. After Dr. Lawrence Loh, there will be other speakers to zoom in onto subjects of your interest and how we can do better. And without further ado, can I pass the stage to Dr. Lawrence Loh, please?
Hello, can I check all of you can see the slide?
Yep.
Okay, good, because I once have a colleague, he lectured for 2 hours. Nobody realized he had some PowerPoint slides. So anyway, I'm very happy to be here. In fact, the first thing I did when Esther issued this invitation, actually a summon, to speak on the future of sustainability. The first thing I did was to actually dissect the topic to see whether there's a future for sustainability, in fact, for SME as well. And I think the best future is one that sustainability will vanish in a good sense, because what I'm saying is it's going to be part of normal reporting, not just an add-on or plug-in, which is what is happening now in many companies. It's going to be part of the normal way of doing business. In fact, it should be embedded in the normal reporting of the company. I think this is the ideal future you want to see. But having said that, I think we are still a bit distant from this absolute normalcy, and I am very happy to be here. I come, as Esther said, from the Center for Governance and Sustainability, two sides of the same coin. That's very important, and environment will cut across the two pillars that we do. And what I'm going to share today is actually some of the key highlights, selective highlights from a very recent study, which was just presented in May this year. Is a biennial sustainability reporting review conducted by Singapore Exchange and my center. In fact, my center has been for some years commissioned by the Singapore Exchange to look at all the listed companies in Singapore on the exchange to see their level of alignment with some of the requirements by the Singapore Exchange. So I'm just going to share only a few things pertaining to SME. If you are interested in the full report and the full presentation or all other reporting that are related, I have some of the URL here, the address, and I think the organizer will put the PDF of my slides today, so you don't have to copy or take any screenshot. Everything will be available. I believe in full disclosure practice, what I preach. Let me just highlight some of the findings. In fact, the findings were based on an assessment framework, which is actually quite comprehensive, but I will just highlight a slight a slice of the framework that we look at. In fact, if you look at the screen now, there are 1+5 categories which add up to the usual 100%. This is totally aligned with I would say the listing rules, particularly the 5 components, which is the 2nd to the 6th item. This is aligned to be specific 711B of listed companies. And I think among listed companies, there are actually, most of them are in the what I call the small cap and medium cap, small capitalization, medium capitalization. I'll come to that. So it's quite relevant for many SME. I think many people think that the listed companies are all large. Actually, many of them, most of them are actually belonging to the medium and small category. So we have 5 set of factors: material, ESG factors, policies, targets, sustainability reporting, and board statement. These are some areas that the Singapore Exchange require companies to disclose on a comply or explain basis, meaning that if you don't disclose, you have to explain. But having a sustainability report is mandatory. It is a listing requirement, but in terms of the specific items, you have the option to explain away if it's not relevant to what they are doing. But actually, most companies don't try to explain; they just disclose. So in our study, and I think this is just to set the context, we cover all the issuers of Singapore Exchange. There are actually 700 over companies, but by the time you look at dual listing, those suspended or for a wide variety of technical reasons, they are not actually active. We have 566 companies, so our data is accurate up to information December last year, but because we take several months to do the detailed analysis, so we presented in May. We shared with many of the companies, stakeholders, investors, regulators. So just to highlight and to set the stage for today's discussion, because all my more experienced and wise colleagues in the panel will probably drill deep. So I'll just set the landscape for today. If you look at the overall result, if you look at the 2 biennial studies, 2019 and 2021, the blue bars will represent the previous study. This is almost like a perfect distribution of performance. The horizontal axis is the quality of their performance. 2 years ago, I have a perfect normal distribution, which is the dream, of every professor. A bell-shaped curve for students is always very easy to manage. But the happy news is in this year, in May, what we have is somewhat not so normal, in the sense that it's skewed, in terms of towards the better side. Most of the scores have actually shifted to the right, which means there's some improvement in the quality of sustainability among all the companies. And I think this is not actually due to grading inflation, but actually I would say that because of the very progressive and momentous regulatory as well as company responses, there's a lot of systemic improvement in the system. But as Esther alluded to, let's look at, say, the effects of company size on sustainability reporting score, which is the quality of their reporting. If you look at, say, comparison with small cap, medium cap, I have the definition on the screen, you can read them. This is the standard definition that my center used together with other agencies such as Singapore Institute of Directors. I know one of my fellow panel will probably give you the official definition of SME. I think that's Cindy from Enterprise Singapore, but we use the capitalization measure. You can see from the chart, and I won't say small companies usually do worse, but I will say that small and medium company has better opportunity for improvement. You can see almost a linear trend. The big caps usually do better than the medium cap, and the medium cap will do better than the small cap. And this is consistent across both studies that we have. And I think there are actually many reasons why this is so. And I think in our panel later, we can drill deep. Of course, I can offer some now, but due to time constraint, I will let the panelists and also myself speak at the panel. But I want to highlight a couple of very interesting findings in terms of the quality of the sustainability as measured by the reporting. Even though smaller companies tend to do worse, one interesting thing I found is that, on the Singapore Exchange, most of us will know that there are two boards. The main board, which is the more resource, usually the much bigger companies. And then there's another board, the secondary board, which is called the catalyst. This is a board where the admission and the continuing requirements are slightly lower than the main board. Interestingly, for this round, what we have found is that catalyst companies, which are usually mostly small and medium cap company. In fact, one of the alternative criteria for catalysts is that they must be actually small cap. They must be actually, to be on the main board, you need to be above 300 million, so medium cap above. But in our sample, all the main board are actually large cap. So you can see this interesting result. Catalysts perform better than main board. So one of the reasons is probably, and I think I suspect this is the truth, the catalyst companies are guided by sponsors, so-called sponsors that guide them into listing on the catalyst board. These are the, the sponsor, the full sponsor. And then to continue as a catalyst company, you need a continuing sponsor, and the sponsor will guide the smaller companies in terms of fulfilling the listing requirements. So the moral story is this: even if you are small, if you are well guided, you can actually perform better than the big boys. That's one finding. Another interesting finding, I will drill deep because I know this is Esther's favorite topic, climate change. If you look at climate change framework, I drill this up. You can see on the right side, in terms of the use of specific reporting framework for climate change, out of the 500 over companies, we only have 11 companies that use a specific framework for climate change. And interestingly, all these are large companies. All 11 of them are large companies, including CDL, I must say, which does very well in this category. Yeah. So I think that's about it. I would rather let all the details be articulated by my colleagues as well as by all of us in the panel. Thank you, Esther, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence Loh. Very interesting. And I think there's definitely room for improvement, even for mid and large cap as well. So a lot of reporters are actually struggling, to really make sense of the many, acronyms that surrounding us. The next speaker will be, in a position to help us to, make some, sense of the, GRI definitely, and also whether we really need to look at all the, reporting standard. They're actually almost about 300. I read the latest, and of course the top framework includes those that I mentioned before. So Dr. Aninat Go Adigu is actually the head of GRI ASEAN Hub, and Ali has been with GRI for many years and very savvy with the subject. And GRI is actually stand for the Global Reporting Initiative, which is the world's most established and widely adopted global sustainability reporting standard. And let's hear more about, GRI's guidance, especially tailored for SME, and to produce better reports that will meet investors' expectation. Over to you, Ali. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Esther. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you're from. Always a pleasure to, speak at events like this, especially speak among, very good sorry. So, to speak with among experts in the field. Let me just share with you. Let me know if you can see my slides. Yes. Okay. So again, thank you. And as Esther mentioned, I am Ali. I'm Ali. I am from the Global Reporting Initiative. So I will share with you just a bit what GRI is all about, in case there are still people who haven't heard of GRI, and what is GRI doing in to get more SMEs to do sustainability reports. So GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, is the pioneer in sustainability reporting. We were created in 1997. So before, before there was this alphabet soup of reporting frameworks and standards, there was only GRI. And, our goal is to make sure that organizations, we provide a global common language for corporate transparency, and in order to help businesses and other organizations understand and communicate their sustainability impacts. And how do we do that? We do that through the GRI standards. So we call it our main product. So through our GRI standards, we provide organizations and companies a free reporting standard wherein they can publicly report their sustainability impacts to the economy, to the society, and to the environment, whether positive or negative. And this we call, and we consider the GRI standards a public good. We provide, this is freely provided for everyone. So everyone and anyone who wishes to use it can just go to our website and download it. So we have four main focus areas. One is, of course, to create and maintain a world-class sustainability disclosure standards. And with that, having that set of standards, of course, we want to make sure that there is global adoption on the use of the GRI standards, and not just because we want to be the first, but of course, it really there is a value in having a common reporting framework, so that companies can benchmark themselves among their competitors. And then it's not enough that we get companies to report, but of course we also help companies to improve the quality of reporting. And most importantly, we support full public access to sustainable disclosures. So we do that by first, of course, giving free access to the GRI standards. And second, if you go to our website, we have a database of all, not all, but most of the sustainability reports that have been issued by companies and organizations worldwide since 1997. So they are categorized by size, by industry, by region, by country. So going on to the to the main topic of this webinar, how do we get SMEs to report? And our SMEs, should SMEs go this track? GRI, I'll just go a bit backwards. So as I said, we've been around since 1997, and probably wittingly or unwittingly, it seems that, now if you look at the vast majority of reporters, these are just mainly majority are publicly listed corporations or large corporations. And when GRI established the GRI standards, we really didn't intend it that way, but probably the way that the following, of course, the issuance of the GRI standards, countries have also started issuing policies, mandatory ESG disclosures, and how these policies have been structured unintentionally, probably seem to cater towards large corporations, but through and GRI has recognized it. So through our competitive business program, GRI and the Swiss government intended to help small and medium-sized enterprises in the developing world to gain better access to global supply chains through sustainability reporting. So we established this program in 2016, and it ran until 2020. So when we started doing this program, in Colombia, Vietnam, Ghana, Indonesia, Peru, and South Africa, it was quite a new practice, and we had varying degrees of success. And at the beginning, we did struggle to get SMEs to report, and for throughout that 4-year period, we had some successes. We had a bit of challenges that we learned from, and out of that experience, we published this document called Empowering Small Business recommendations for policymakers to enable corporate sustainability reporting for SMEs. We published this in 2018. So you can see on the right hand of your screen the jacket of the publication. So if you're interested to read that further, you can go to our website and again can download it for free. So the purpose of the report is to provide a comprehensive overview of the current policy practices that are shaping the reporting behavior of SMEs, focusing mainly on the policy elements that enable a conducive environment for SMEs to report on their sustainability impact. So what are these actually main drivers in getting sustainable SMEs to report? One, according to this report and from the point of view of GRI, one of the biggest driver of reporting among SME is the globalized supply chain. And as we know, for sure, I'm not going to mention companies, but for sure you have heard in the past decade, large companies having been involved in corporate scandals, violation of human rights, and usually this occur among their suppliers in their supply chain, suppliers that they have contracted. Usually in the developing world. So because of that, more and more countries have issued policies for regulations for large companies, making sure that there is sustainability in their supply chain, but particularly adhering to human rights guidelines. Also, a lot of making sure there are other examples are supply chain should not be engaged in conflict minerals and things like that. In that document, we identified 10 practices that can get SMEs to go this path of sustainability reporting. But if I could summarize it in 3 categories, so I call this the 3 pillars of the SME sustainability reporting. So I would categorize it into financing, the need for financing, providing training and capacity building for SMEs. And another one more important is the national policies, regulations, and legal frameworks. Because as we know, when GRI was established, reporting among corporations is not a common practice yet. And what has driven large corporations to report, all these years are regulations by financial regulators, stock exchanges, and Securities Commission. So these 3 things, if a country could have this all together, we think that it could get more SMEs to report. Just to drill down on what these 3 pillars constitute. Again, I would encourage you to read that report. It's free, but we categorize it into 10 practices. So first is bringing transparency to the supply chain. So as I mentioned, more and more national, regional, and international supply chain reporting policy are driving sustainability among the supply chain. I have read this statement from Apple recently. So they have already declared that they will be a net zero company. And they mentioned that for them to achieve a net zero emission, 75% of emission reduction will come from their supply chain. So as Esther mentioned earlier, the scope, the magnitude, and the depth of SMEs cannot be ignored. So large corporations do have a huge footprint of SMEs. That's why it's important, and they're leading the way. And then of course there's a need to provide direction to SMEs through national guidelines, guidance frameworks, programs, and legislation. Why? It's human nature, and it's behavior of corporations. If it's not required by the government, very few will do it voluntarily. In a number of countries here, outside the Philippines, as an example, before the regulation was issued, mandatory ESG disclosures, there was only at least 10% of listed companies that are reporting. That was, in 2016. When the regulation was issued in 2019, we have 96%. So that is how effective regulations are. And then another is zooming into topics. So specific reporting requirements, because SMEs, would have they're smaller in operation. Dr. Lowe mentioned earlier that his study covered small and medium cap. But when I talk about SMEs, you know, in this context, we're talking about really small operations. So how sustainability reporting through the years has been structured, you know, like for example, GRI, if you go to a training partner, they provide 3 full days of training. So if it's, you know, you're talking about small SMEs, small outfits here, I don't think, you know, SMEs, particularly an example, we like a 10-person SME would have the resources or would even allocate, you know, a person to attend a 3-day training. So along with number 2, government should also be able to identify what are those specific topics. And along with this, you know, first 3, it's also important to apply the global principles for business and human rights in the national action plans. And then, so the first 4 talks about policies, and then the next 6, these are other supports that not just the government can provide, but financial institutions, even training institutions. So I will talk about, giving a financial boost. This is quite important because, as we know, I mentioned earlier, SMEs have, you know, compared to large corporations, they cannot, you know, put up a whole team of sustainability, a sustainability department because of, you know, lack of resources or capacity. So giving a financial boost really helps. Like for example, if you will read that report in Austria, they have this SME fund whereby the government, sustainability SME fund whereby the government has helped assisted SMEs in getting sustainability consultancy to look at their operations, where they can improve or if they want to upgrade equipment, stuff like that. So these are the kind of financial boost. Another driver of sustainability, which we have seen among SMEs, which we have seen in the past couple of years, is the passage of sustainable finance regulations by financial regulators, particularly in Southeast Asia, because when we did this program with GRI in 2016, it was fairly new. No one was talking about it. That's why it was so hard to get SMEs to report. But in the last couple of years, we've been hearing more and more clamor to get SMEs to report. And why? Because that sustainable finance regulation by regulators are now requiring banks to issue sustainable finance loans and products. And usually these are directed towards SMEs. So even banks, lending institutions are now demanding sustainability report from SMEs. I will stop here. I will, if there are any questions later on, if you want me to expound further on the other 10 practices, I can talk about it later on.
Great, thank you, Ellie. Yeah, definitely a lot of large cap companies are also giving pressure to SME because most of our suppliers are actually SME. So we do look at, apart from the 3 areas, we also look at their carbon footprint because we are committed to SBTI, Science-Based Target Initiative, for carbon reduction target. So suppliers' footprint and also sustainable building materials are our top priority. So because we are also responsible for their carbon footprint, so most of our suppliers are also adhere to support our targets as well. So the next speaker will be is Jessica, who's actually the founder and managing director of Eco Business, that many of you actually know her very well, and she's also a very prominent environmental advocate and a director sitting on board a listed company in Singapore. So I don't think I need to introduce too much about her already. And so Jessica, over to you to give us a broad introduction of your thoughts on SMEs' performance in communicating their ESG strategy from the many hats that you are wearing. Thank you, Jessica. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Esther. Just going to share my slides. Okay, everyone can see it?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Esther CDL, for the invitation to this very important webinar and topic. I know that with the increased attention on ESG issues, really the SMEs are asking, how can this really be valuable to me? So I'm going to spend a very short few minutes to kind of deliver some of my top, thoughts about this issue. And I think I want to spend a little bit of time on what is really driving the momentum in Asia. Because if you think about SMEs operating in this region, we are very vulnerable to climate change. I think the floods in China, as you've seen, are a testament, and not to mention, the drought that we're seeing across the world, as well as the erratic weather patterns. And that is only just really one thing that we need to be considered. And so how is your business responding to this changing conditions, and how are you becoming resilient? Supply chain compliance is also something that's very important, and SMEs are, part of bigger supply chains. Esther, you mentioned, even with MNCs, when you look at actually hiring suppliers and giving SMEs, contracts, you actually look at the sustainability credentials, and how can SMEs then provide that value and provide that disclosure to prove that they're looking at this. The license to operate is something very obvious. Sustainability is now part and parcel of doing business. And the other thing as well, the access to finance is very important. We have seen green loans, sustainability linked loans that have emerged in Asia. And this is actually becoming a key mechanism for SMEs to actually utilize for them to actually fund their business operations. Then, of course, the last really key thing is industry standards, because industries such as construction and real estate are setting the standards for SMEs and also some other industries, in the more heavy industrial sectors. And the standards are ever increasing. So you're never going to see standards go backwards. And therefore, it is important for SMEs to realize. What I think is very interesting is that because SMEs are, we have a wide variety of SMEs. There are the small and mid caps issuers, which are mandated to disclose, but we also have SMEs that are not mandated to disclose. And the interesting thing here is that voluntary ESG disclosure is growing in this region. And I just want to take some time to say that if you are an SME that is not listed, it still is important for you to look at ESG disclosure, because that actually presents you with a competitive advantage. So, Ali has spoken a lot about, the tips for SMEs, and I would just like to flash this because I want you to think about really the bottom line and what really is the wider impact of your business. And this obviously cuts across social, labor conditions, diversity, women in leadership, governance, economic and environment. And together you can see that this is actually a framework for SMEs to actually think about where you can pivot to become competitive in the sector that you're in, and also to look after the environment and also your people, because doing so actually makes you more resilient to shocks and also makes you more attractive to investors as well as partners. So some of the questions that I wanted to, kind of put forth for you to think about is your company thinking about your position on climate change? What are your material issues, the internal and external perspectives? What are your ambitions? And if you do have ambitions, it is very important to articulate these ambitions, because otherwise your external stakeholders will have no idea what you're planning. And it also helps internally, that process, for you to be thinking about this. So what are the actions or your steps being taken to reduce your carbon emissions? And are you aligning your reporting, your internal reporting, or whether it's external reporting, to the international measurement frameworks, whether it's GRI, SASB, TCFD, or integrated reporting? And also things like your labor rights, diversity, supply chain. These are policies that is very important for you to have. So why do investors care about ESG? Because they care about risk. And I think it's important to understand that your investors, your business partners, are actually looking at you as to how are you responding to climate change? How are you treating your workers? How are you building trust, fostering innovation, and how are you managing supply chains? We've seen from COVID-19 that it was a huge shock to our supply chain. So have you actually thought about the resilience of it, the social protection and the environmental protection? But it's not all bad news, and it's not all just about managing risks. There's also a lot of opportunities. So if you look at ESG and market performance, it is demonstrably clear now that companies that have good ESG performance are also doing better on the stock market. And if you are not listed, you are also getting better valuations. And I think this is a very important slide, because what used to be, considered financial capital used to be the big proportion of a company's valuation, but now the intangible capital actually makes up the bulk of a company's valuation. So when you want to sell your company, or if you are thinking about how you stand, how you benchmark against your peers, you are really looking at things like sustainable governance, your ecological value, stakeholder capital, and human capital. And these are some areas that are really important for you to understand, because the what they call non-financial ESG factors have now increasingly become material ESG factors. So I just wanted to end this on a quote that I love, which is, "There are no jobs on a dead planet." And this was from Our Planet, Our Business. There's an amazing documentary that looks at businesses' role. And really, if we don't take care of our natural ecosystems and our people, really, we won't be in business. So I just want to end it there. Thank you, Esther.
Wonderful, Jessica. Okay, based on the last, our first webinar, there were a lot of questions about SME. How do we get help, to do better in sustainability and also reporting? And the next speaker is actually Cindy Lim from Enterprise Singapore. And a recent survey that she shared is as seen in the National Business Survey 2020 conducted by SPF, Singapore Business Federation. Only 15% of over 1,000 companies felt that positive impact on focusing on climate change and sustainability. They voted only 15% feel that those are important. And with a growing demand for sustainability, Cindy, could you share with us Enterprise Singapore's views and approaches to support companies to embark on the sustainability journey? And for those who have started, how could they do better? And how do they address to the rising interest and awareness of sustainability practices and reporting? Over to you, Cindy.
Hi, thanks, Esther. Yep, I think my slide has been loaded up. Okay, so I'll also run through quite quickly. So really good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone here, wherever you are. I'm really very honored to be part of the panelists here today. So happy also to see some of the familiar faces, names here and the participants. So once again, I'm Cindy, representing Enterprise Singapore. I think for here, I will use Enterprise Singapore instead of ESG, because ESG also means environmental, social, and governance. Okay, so yeah, maybe to the next slide, please. Yeah. Sorry, I have some background noise here. Yeah, first and foremost, just a quick introduction of Enterprise Singapore. In case some of the audience here are not familiar with us, we are the statutory board of Ministry of Trade or Industry, championing the growth of local enterprises. And I think really particularly, we help local enterprises to improve their productivity, internationalize and innovate. Yeah, maybe the next slide. Yeah, I think today, particularly on the topic of accessibility, I think we wanted to also adding on what Jessica, I think earlier has mentioned about the driving momentum of business. I think herein we just also wanted to highlight the different pressure points from stakeholders. For example, if we look at regulators, countries are setting climate targets, carbon targets. With that, they will put in place policy and regulations for the companies to comply. And you talk about employees, employees are also putting emphasis on companies who had actually good ESG performance. And investors as well, I think it was also highlighted earlier that investors are really incorporating ESG factors into their investment assessments. So in a way, they're really looking at companies that have incorporated good ESG performance. And I think particularly for SMEs, many of them may face pressure from their supply chain stakeholders, like for example, MNCs, because MNCs are also putting in place, their climate targets or their regulations to improve their accessibility. So this is really going to impact our SMEs, because if you're part of value chain, you need to comply with the accessibility requirements. I think lastly, we also want to talk about there's pressure also from consumers. I think increasingly with the greatest awareness of accessibility practices, so they are also favoring sustainable products and businesses. So that's where I think we talk about ESG disclosure and accessibility reporting is going to be very important, because it helps companies or SMEs such as yourselves to demonstrate your accessibility performance and efforts to stakeholders. Yeah, maybe next, please. So I think herein, I think what Enterprise Singapore wanted to share is, besides addressing stakeholders' needs, there are really benefits for enterprises to pursue accessibility. I think it's also, echo also with the views from Jessica and also the earlier panelists here. So I think first thing we wanted to highlight is the mitigation of risk. So I mean, when you start to incorporate ESG into your risk assessment, you are able to identify risks from the environmental aspects, social and governance. So for example, your supply chain risks, are they affected by the climate effect, increasing flooding and all that. So in a way, you start to diversify your supply chain. And then second, optimize resources. I think this is really nothing new, because as you adopt sustainable practices, it means you improve your resource efficiency, you can achieve cost savings from there. I think lastly, I think we also wanted to highlight that accessibility is just from a cost and risk perspective, right? It's really about opportunities. So you can, because of accessibility, turn that into opportunities and where you actually enter new markets and new growth area. So I think today, I have a meeting with one of the SMEs, and then because their emphasis and their focus is accessibility, they told us that they are able to, they have more and more companies reaching out to them, wanting to partner them, because they have the brand name of accessibility. So in a way, it opens up more opportunity for businesses. Yep. So I think this is just really a quick step of us really saying that how do SMEs get started. I think really first, it's really very important to start to build awareness on accessibility. We know there are many concepts out there in the market. So perhaps as a start, you start off with one or two accessibility concepts. And then, after building on your awareness of accessibility, that's where SMEs start to identify your relevant first steps. It could be really talking about conducting some baseline assessment, or you focus on areas that have greatest impact to your businesses, like doing resource efficiency and all that. And I think lastly, when you are more ready, when you want to set targets, that's where you could do ESG disclosure, to disclose your performance, and also do a holistic review of your own strategy so that you can meet your targets that you have set. Yep. So the next slide, I think I just wanted to end off with this. I think for Enterprise Singapore, we really want to support our local enterprises in their pursuit of accessibility. I think really in this new normal, we see accessibility as a core capabilities that companies need to build, to operate and excel in this era. So I think, and also one of the key message that we really want to bring out to businesses is that sustainable practices can have a real positive impact on business growth. I think like what Esther says is, protecting environment and on pursuing opportunities can come hand in hand. So I think we also feel that it should not just be viewed from a cost perspective. So I think lastly, I just wanted to end off with this part about, Enterprise Singapore is going to launch this new program, Enterprise Accessibility Program. I think it has been announced earlier at budget, just very top high level announcement. But I think the team, Enterprise Singapore is working out this program. We're going to launch it at the later part of the year. And I think with this new program, there are plans for us to explore, driving and building awareness and understanding on the importance of accessibility, and that could include the role of accessibility reporting. So yeah, I think more details we'll be announcing at the end of the year when we launch this program. Yep. So I think that's all I have for the intro. Looking forward to conversations that we're going to have later on. So I'm then handing back to Esther. Esther, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
And thank you all the speakers. I think definitely we all agree that there is a much stronger business case, and definitely sustainability is now no doubt that it is not a good to have. It is really a mainstream. But of course, there are quite a few questions that I'm going to weave it into some of the questions that I have already prepared for our speakers. So based on the findings of the SR review and also, all the panelists' view, what will be some practical actions, the SME reporter can take to plug the gaps, like what Cindy said is also a risk, mitigation. But I think more importantly, we also need to look at long-term sustainability. Apart from mitigation, which is a given for any business, now we are looking at adaptation. So how do we tap onto sustainability, integration, and also reporting to identify growth opportunity? and add value to the business. And don't forget that we only have less than 10 years, to hit the targets of 2030. And how do we tackle climate, social, and economic challenges? And I think there was also a couple of questions, one from Lauren Tucker, and this is specifically for Lawrence, that what do you think that will be the key, contributing factors for better reporting? Okay, especially this year, I suppose, probably linkage to, the social, challenges. And Frederick King also asked the question is, how do we gauge a global baseline in sustainability reporting? Is it just a mandatory requirement? And he also cited some of the, acronym and all that. But let's focus on this. In short, how do we do better reporting? Okay, Lawrence, you want to start first? Because the question was for you specifically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Maybe let me start. I'm sure I'm in very elegant company on the panel. Actually, thanks to me, we have fulfilled SDG 5, gender equality. But having said that, I think gender equality is something very important. It's a key part of social part of ESG. And I think this is something that many SME or even all companies have to approach it. Not all at once, but progressively. I think this is what Cindy has been saying also. If you need to drink water, you don't immediately have to drink it from the whole waterfall. Drink it from a cup. So what I say for SME, the journey is quite difficult, as Ellie and Jessica has so eloquently alluded to. So my advice to SME to plug the gaps is, focus on what is relevant to you, material to you. For example, if you are a printing company, and I think I had a very interesting encounter with a printing company CEO just a couple of years back when we started sustainability reporting, and this CEO told me that, sustainability, you're going to put me out of business. The PDF is my greatest enemy. It will eradicate my whole business. But I think, having said that, I told him, maybe you can pivot, you can transform your business. I mean, and that's even before COVID. I mean, all these terms were not so fashionable. So, for example, one of my favorite publisher is Cengage. Over the years, they have moved from a pure print book. Now they are actually an e-solution provider, and all my classes are 100% paperless thanks to all these publishers. So I think that there's opportunity for many, hitherto and, difficult companies to actually make the change, and I think they can actually do it in a very progressive, purposeful way. Maybe I stop. I answer the other questions that the other panelists stop. Thank you, Esther. Yeah.
Thank you. Jessica, you want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. And, there is a very interesting question in the chat asking about, how actually in ASEAN, there are many businesses that are micro businesses. So really, there's no one size fits all solution. But I think that awareness level is very important. Like if we equip SME owners and business owners to understand the new landscape, which is going to be dominated by sustainability and the digital disruption, then what are the skills do they need to kind of as Prof said, pivot their business? And are they thinking about, their supply chain? Are they thinking about the protection of their business? And I think it's that skills gap, that capacity gap that we really need to be thinking about. And the disclosure journey is actually only a process, is a means to an end. It's not that, at the end of the journey, if you spit out an ESG report, it means you've made it. That's not true. The journey is for businesses to actually really kind of internalize, what does it mean to be a responsible business? Where are the opportunities that they can gravitate towards? Like Esther, you mentioned adaptation, right? It has to come with mitigation. So where are these opportunities and where can they be part of the solution rather than be part of the problem? So I think it's an exciting time for SMEs, and it is our, kind of trisector duty, right? Whether it's government, civic society, business, or the media, we need to be helping SMEs move along the chain, because for the big boys, they are already kind of mandated by the investor community, by regulators. But for SMEs, because they are less regulated in that sense, they also need more attention and more hand-holding and more resources. So that's kind of my overview.
Well, definitely, I think sustainability report, if you can apply it more to your operation and also in a strategic way in your planning, it will really add value, and also look at the future lens rather than look at the past or present. But without tracking, you will never know what are you where are you now and what are the future opportunity. From our own humble experience, that we have produced 14 reports as of now already since 2008, and everyone actually really taught us something. Not just look at the gaps of operational performance, but also look at, hey, in order to plug the gap, how can we do better? That's really drive us to look at, solutions, alternatives, and, better strategy. But don't get too overwhelmed by, all the framework, and we started with GRI in 2008. And it remained as our core. But over the year, of course, there are also like TCFD, UN and IRRC, and of course, the SBTI, CDP, and SASB, and climate building standard. So there's so many. Don't get groggy. Just look at your own business. Materiality study is something that I would highly recommend to all companies, because it really provides a compass. When you are lost in a crossroad, you need a compass to guide you. So I always look at materiality study as a compass. Guide us which direction I should go first. You prioritize it. It's like eating a buffet, like what I shared before. Don't go for every dish. You pick those that really can satisfy your palate and make you really, happy, in the end of the day. So now when we talk about framework and all that, Ali, no one is better than you to really look at it in a very, very objective manner. And of course, the whole world is looking at harmonization of standards. And from my own humble experience, there isn't a one-size-fits-all as of now. Okay, that is also why our CDL sustainability report, we embrace 7 of that. And we pick and choose what are the best that can represent us, not pick and choose to just show good performance. Sustainability report is not just about a PR report. It's not just reporting the good, but also reporting the area for improvement. But what will be the best way you would recommend the SME to start and do better? Yeah.
Well, of course, I'm from GRI. The logical answer would be to recommend to start with GRI. But kidding aside, I think not just for small companies, but every organization that is just looking at reporting would be overwhelmed. Who wouldn't be? All this alphabet soup of reporting frameworks and standards, and it needs time and skills to really understand all of these things. But what I always advise companies, whether large or small or medium size, reporting is actually the easiest part. The most difficult part is transforming the organization into a sustainable one. And this includes understanding first and foremost, because the most difficult, for me, what I've seen, one of the most, the biggest challenge among organizations to get them to report is changing the mindset. And that includes understanding sustainability. Why do they have to be sustainable? Like we've been operating for many years. No one is asking us to write a report, and suddenly we have to be sustainable. So I think that's the first step, because once you understand as an organization, as a company, why you have to be sustainable, then you would be go through this whole transformation process on find out which areas of your operation you need to be sustainable in. And in going back to the example of Dr. Low earlier, he talked about the printing company. So it's not really, again, it's not about reporting. That is the end product of the sustainability efforts that you have gone through as an organization. But understanding why you have to be sustainable also makes you aware of the risks and opportunities available to you as a company. And and this would allow you to to continue to exist as a company. And as we know, we're living in this very fast-paced digital age. What is hot today would be obsolete tomorrow. I give an example: a camera, a company that used to develop prints for cameras, right? So again, where are these companies now? What have they done to keep up with the times? Did they close? Were they able to transform their organization, their company, to keep up with the development of the times? So I would always, so my suggestion is for companies not to be overwhelmed. Start with the basics, and as shown in the one of the last 2 slides of Cindy, start with that understanding. Start like for SMEs. You may not know it. You are actually, we probably are already doing a lot of sustainability initiatives, because there are like piecemeal governments and local governments would be requiring certain regulations that you have to abide with, like something related to your supply chain, your labor management practices, how you manage your water resources, how you manage your waste management. So start with these things, and then. But if I really have to, give a prescription, of course, start with GRI. Why GRI? Because GRI, we cover environment and social and economic topics. So there are 36, material topics that companies can choose to report on. Again, going back to what Esther and Lawrence mentioned earlier, focus on materiality.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I suppose this one will also has also addressed Jack Noonan's questions that how important are the topics of equity, diversity, inclusion, human rights, and social impact. That are all covered under the GRI, the social impact, the standards that Jack can actually visit the website to take a look. And the same a question from the same participant, Jack, asked Lawrence, generic CSR reports not tied to any standards or frameworks included in your analysis, your review. Do you wish to address this question?
Okay, let me address this, and I think what I say will pertain to maybe almost all in the audience as well. I think in our review, we are not standard specific. Even though as an outcome, I think Ellie would love to hear this. For all, I think almost all use framework, and among all who use framework, 99.1% use GRI. I mean, so, but having said that, I think we are not standard specific, and we are actually looking at what you actually do and disclose in terms of sustainability. So specifically, if you start from the CSR angle, there are many things in the CSR that pertains particularly to social and even environmental. And I think you don't have to call it SRA, even if you call it CSR, if this actually come across as, substantively fulfilling the intent as well as the disclosure requirements, will actually let you have it. But just as an aside, if you look at say mainland China as a jurisdiction, many of the companies there, including the very large SOE, actually don't have sustainability report. They have what they call the CSR report. And I think over the years, they actually evolved into what is SR, but they still call it CSR report. So I think it's not what you call. It's not the bottle, but we are actually looking at the wine, the quality of the wine. So don't the form and the substance. The substance is more important than the form in terms of our evaluation. And I think this is a big lesson for SME. Don't just go for the cosmetics and the peripheral. Go straight to the core, the purpose, the intent. Tell a good story. Let convince all stakeholders, investors, consumers that you are serious about having, progressing forward, because to quote Jessica, there's no jobs on the dead planet.
Yeah, if I may share also that question about what do you think about IRC and all that. I think the integrated reporting, it may not need to just, pack to any particular framework. The integrated approach is very important. That means you have to make business and financial sense of ESG. That is also what investors are looking at it. If you could quantify, not just tell that your audience that, oh, I'm committed to saving the world, full stop. Give quantifiable target if you can't set a net zero target by 2030, for example, set climate strategies to focus on, okay, I plan to, or I'm committed to setting a goals of reducing by, X percentage, whether it's 30%, 50% by 2030. So I think climate risks have been voted, by both political business leader at the World Economic Forum as the investment risk and business risk as well. So I would suggest that whichever sector you are in, you have climate footprint, you have carbon footprint. If I was to start over again as an SME, I would focus on climate reporting. That is also TCFD, the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, quite a mouthful. And that the fundamental is look at your business impact. Look at what climate has to do with your business impact. What climate risk has an impact on your business and on your future. How to future-proof your business. I think that is very important. Look at your carbon footprint. Adopting the CDP, which is actually very useful from our own opinion in the building sectors or related sector. So any speaker wants to, add on to that about framework, about, integrated approach? Yes? No? Okay. If not, actually, we unfortunately, the time is ticking very fast. We have about 6 minutes left. So I am going to open to all our panelists to do, a closing remark on, ESG issues. We all agreeable that it is no longer good to have, but SME are facing a lot of challenges. COVID has impacted on every business. So how do we struggle between staying afloat in the business, staying in the black, and also meeting the rising expectations, to do better in environment, social, and governance? So every panelist, maybe we can start with Cindy first from the business perspective.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Esther. Yeah, I think just leaving some last words, I would say, for the panelists. I think when we discuss and share, I think really when we talk about protecting our environment and capturing new opportunities, it's definitely not mutually exclusive. I know we'll talk about it. In fact, they complement one another, and we really hope SMEs start to look at sustainability and see as business opportunities and also a longer term necessity. I mean, not just from compliance angle. Really find ways to identify opportunities. And I think as what was shared earlier, we start small. Build awareness, start small, really start somewhere that are more relevant to you. Identify your stakeholder needs. Really, is it industry needs, markets needs? Where are your stakeholder asking for? Start from there. Maybe adopting some standards, maybe sustainability standards could help. That could be a good first step. So I think for SMEs that are more ready, you should harness it as opportunities. I just wanted to end off to say that Enterprise Singapore will work with ecosystem partners to raise and build awareness for the SMEs, and also I think support SMEs that are more ready to capture the opportunities. Yep. Thank you.
Ellie, your final thoughts?
Yeah, sorry about that. So as I mentioned earlier, don't get bogged down by the with the thought of producing a glossy, beautiful report. Again, it's all about imbibing sustainability in your company, because sustainability is good for business, and for SME, there's no getting away with it, because as I mentioned earlier, it's being demanded by among the supply chain, and then we're seeing also lenders, banking institutions requiring it to SMEs. So this is something that you really have to start looking at. And particularly now we're still living in the pandemic crisis, and as Esther mentioned, it is the SMEs. The SMEs are the ones that are most badly hit by the pandemic. And we have to remember the pandemic is just one of the bigger crises that humanity will face. We're living now amidst the climate crisis, and then continuing with that climate crisis would be the biodiversity collapse. So for the sake of your business, for the sake of the existence of your company, this is something that you really have to start looking at.
Okay, Jessica, you are also a director. Okay, and well, you and I also sit on board of the SID ESG committee, and definitely it is our intent to really push the agenda and also the leadership among directors. So, in your closing thoughts, do you wish to, address it, from a director's perspective? What is our wish, for directors to play a more, even stronger role in leading ESG?
Yes, thank you, Esther. I mean, my closing thoughts, I would like to cover 2 points. One, on directors. I think whether you're a director of a public listed company or you're a director of a small SME, these concerns really also apply to you. And if you look at the future landscape that I mentioned, it's going to be dominated by sustainability concerns, urbanization, increasing pollution, increasing regulations. And these topics are not going to go away, and they affect companies in that same way. So I think the capacity development needs to happen, and that all starts with education. So webinars like these are important, but then also that proactiveness to actually look at resources such as the one that Ellie shared from GRI, or the reports that NUS have shared, or the resources that Enterprise Singapore has provided. They are very important, and we need to be proactive in seeking them out and to apply that knowledge that we have. The other point I wanted to make with one question that came is very important, because it says the question is, we're limiting our I guess sharing to SG-based companies. Actually, that's not true, because if you think about Asia and the developing countries, even with the micro entrepreneurs, they do face the same issues, when they want to seek business, for example, from governments or from MNCs or from other business partners. Sustainability and ESG credentials are becoming more important. And then for them to also look at their own business and their own supply chain, how are they able to protect their own business, but we're also looking for opportunities. And some of the basic principles, I think, apply, and we would be very happy to support any other SME conversations that are happening around the region beyond Singapore. So thank you very much, Esther.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Yes, definitely this webinar is not meant for just Singapore alone. In fact, Singapore is a hub. We actually, manage business with almost the whole world. So even for us, we are a Singapore listed company, but we have presence in 29 countries and regions, and we have a lot of suppliers from different parts of the world. So I think the webinar is actually aimed to help SME from various parts of the world to to step up, we interact and then learn from each other and share more. So Dr. Lawrence Low, you have the last words.
Okay, I don't know whether it's because I'm unique today, but I have a couple of parting thoughts. I think first is about the issue of incentive and benefit. Ultimately, for all companies, particularly so for SMEs, it's all about self-interest. And I think at a broader picture, I have done studies at my research center over the last couple of years that shows that sustainability, as measured by its reporting, lead to increase in market value. That's one. And I have also another same academic published peer-reviewed study that shows that sustainability leads to better brand value. These are all published research. I use companies listed on the Singapore Exchange. If anybody's interested, I can share the academic articles. But having said that, I think ultimately for SME is about benefit to them, one company at a time. So for SME, you have to map your investors, which will, reduce your cost of capital. That is reducing the cost, and it will also enlarge your customer base, which will then increase your revenue. So as a parting shot for today, I like to, encourage all SME to be a good SME in sustainability reporting. So I like to say that ESG, ESG means every SME is good. ESG, every SME is good. So that's all. Thank you, Esther. That's my wish.
Yeah, thank you for all the 4 panelists, and everyone has the words of wisdom. But I think whether SME or large cap, I think the basic thing I would like to share is business is no longer just about business, not just about short-term profit making. You do need to look at long-term and not just doing good, quietly, because you do need to share and communicate effectively. That is where ESG disclosure, sustainability reporting is so important. Gone are the days that, I just want to do good without telling people. But unfortunately, we do need to share, because the world is very transparent and everybody wants to know how good you are or what are the areas that you can improve. So let's look at how we can communicate better, not about chest beating. You know, you have to be truthful when you talk about ESG reporting. You can't just talk about the good thing. I sweep under the carpet, you know, all the bad thing. You do need to be very prompt, very truthful, very transparent. And with this, I want to thank all our partner, SGX, SID, NUS, and you know, Eco-Business, and you know, GRI today, and the Center for Governance and Sustainability, and also UN ESCAP, Global Compact Network Singapore. I hope I didn't miss out anybody. And look out for the third sessions that we are still looking for a topic, and well, look out for our EDM, and everyone stay safe and stay well. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.